Good morning, guys. Happy Friday to you. Welcome to Real Talk. It's an insider's guide to real estate across Central Virginia. It's a pleasure to be with you on a hot summer Friday across the Commonwealth. My name is Jerry Miller. This program powered by the YES Team. Keith and Yonna Smith, your go-to choice for buying and selling real estate across Central Virginia. Q2 report on the agenda. We're going to spotlight this from a broad stroke standpoint and then from a micro standpoint as well, with three gentlemen that I think undoubtedly know this report inside and out. Why don't we go to the studio cam, and we'll start Harris Tolber, our director, with some introductions, and then Keith Smith. The first question about Q2 is for you. Keith Smith here, Quinton Beckham here, Michael Guthrie here. Keith Smith, open-ended question, Q2 report. Thoughts, my friend?
So before I get into that, we were going to have one other member join us, Rachel Foster. I want to give her a bit of a shout out. She is not feeling so well today. She donated a kidney and let me know last night that she's just needs a little bit more recovery time. So hopefully, I tried to share this with Rachel. Hopefully she'll chime in on with some messages, but clearly we needed a little beauty at the table. I was trying to get that to happen, and Rachel is still recovering, so a shout out to her. It's pretty awesome. We had a conversation yesterday when she said she couldn't make it and was talking about, it's not a big deal, and I was telling her that, I do a lot of volunteer work and do affordable housing, but you gave a kidney. That's a big deal. Helping people get into houses is a big deal, but you gave a piece of your body.
Really big deal.
This is a really big deal.
We wish her the best.
Absolutely.
So we'll try to fumble along without that pretty face and expertise at the table. So my vision for today's show was to bring three rock stars on and kind of let them give us what their opinion is of the market in the report. You and I have talked over the time what my personal view is, and I think I'll chime in. So I think we'll just let these gentlemen introduce themselves and get right to it.
All right, Quinton, why don't we start with you? The who, what, when, where, why of Quinton Beckham. I know you like the University of Virginia. You love riding a bicycle. You're a man about town. You love real estate, obviously. First, the personal, and then the professional, please.
Just born and raised in Los Angeles. Grew up there, started in real estate there, saw the market crash, got out of it, went into nursing. First travel out to Charlottesville, was working at UVA in the living donor kidney transplant program. So That was kind of an interesting connection with Rachel as she was moving into this. And as kids grew up and moved out of the house, wanted to do something different again, went back to real estate, wondering if this was really a business you could make money in still. Bought a brokerage, and here I am 7 years later, sitting with you all.
I love it. I love it. How about the real estate piece, the professional piece? What do you love about the business?
I really enjoy the intersection that we have with people in their personal lives. If you look at moving versus divorce versus death, these all sort of line up as the most stressful times. And we have an opportunity to work with people to make this be a really, really good thing for them, remove that stress, and make their life better. I think in addition to that, home ownership in total is one of the primary key indicators for moving people into better financial status for them and their family for generations to come. And so I enjoy being a part of that, have enjoyed getting to know more about how that works here through the people around this table. And I think that's an important piece that we can give back to the communities that we serve in moving people into more housing.
Very well said. Stephen Allen says hello. Greg Slater, welcome to the program. John Updike, Marita Ringstrom, welcome to the program. Rachel Foster, thank you for joining us. Michael Guthrie, the show is yours. Welcome back. This is your fourth rodeo, I believe, on set.
At least that amount of time. It's great to be here. And, I moved back to Charlottesville in 2005, had been here at UVA and married. First two kids were born here, moved to Northern Virginia in 1983 to go full-time in the real estate business, and then had the privilege of being asked to come back in 2005 to be the broker and CEO of Roy Wheeler Realty Co, which is where I've been since. Grateful for that. Since moving here, thankfully still married, 3 kids, and now all 3 are married, and we have 7 wonderful grandkids, which is just amazing. Seven grandkids in the last 6 years, and I just feel so blessed to be a part of all those folks' lives. I guess the one thing I would add on to what Quinton said is I got in the business for some of the same reasons, and the fact that it's what I call the warm fuzzies of the business. Buying a house, selling a house is one of the biggest decisions a lot of people ever make, and to have an opportunity to enter into that and hopefully do it in a way that people really feel like you've made a difference in their life. It makes it so that you can make a good living, have a good vocation, but at the same time feel like you're making a positive difference in the world every day by building relationships with people and gaining credibility of those people, showing them that you care, and then on the back side of it, helping them with 1, 2, 3, 7, 8 real estate transactions over a career.
Ginger Marks says hello. Michael Guthrie, you are getting some props from Richard Austin. Rachel Foster has chimed in. Hello, Rachel.
Hey, Rachel.
Thank you. You guys are giving me entirely too much credit. If you'd like to relay any commentary, questions, thoughts, perspective to the fellows, put it in the chat box. I'm a businessman. I love to talk shop and business, especially real estate. I would love to dig into Q2. Anywhere you want to go here, Keith?
So I kind of want to go into the city and talk a little bit about what the gentleman and the young lady watching feels why there's a spread between the medium sales price and the average sales price. Medium's at $389.5 and the average is at $504. But before we do that, I got to pivot slightly. I was listening to Michael talking about his 7 grandkids, and I realized I'm underperforming with only one. So I have to have a conversation with both my daughters to kind of.
Well, one
see
of
if I
your
can
daught's
catch up.
just getting married now.
Yeah, well, okay.
So that's a good thing, isn't it?
That's just a formality. I've got to catch up.
Yona's watching, Keith.
Michael and I are a bit competitive, so I got to get with my kids to get going.
You know, it's funny. Just this week they announced, you can get those license plates. UVA National Championship basketball, lacrosse, whatever. And I've been really thinking about getting one of those personalized license plates. And one of the things I thought about doing is my nickname is Merg, MRG, and so I thought about getting a personalized license plate with the basketball team and put Merg's S7. But I realize there's a good chance I may have to revamp that at some point if one. Well, I think only one of my children will have another one, so I think 8 will be the most. 8 is enough.
All right, we're done talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you thinking, Quinton?
What are you thinking, brother?
We're talking about city of Charlottesville, or we're talking about your grandchildren?
How about we get into the numbers?
He wants to do business.
I love talking business. You know I do.
It's hard to draw too many conclusions when you look at just the city and that market because we're talking about very small numbers here. You can make some conclusions about the median versus average that are really easy to make, and that's that we're missing a lot of home sales in the middle. And if you are like me and you watch those listings, they're out there, they're just not being purchased. And so you're getting a lot of stuff that are in the 300 and under range being sold. You're getting stuff that's $1 million plus being sold. And I say a lot, but if you look at these numbers, we're talking 11 under contract currently and 16 sold as of the end of the second quarter. Those are not huge numbers. So it's hard to do a draw. What is easy to see as you work with clients and as you travel around the city is that for a family, the price point to have a home that is in the city is pretty high. Your price per square foot is a lot higher once you cross that city line. And although we've done a lot of stuff in the city to help make more affordable housing, it just hasn't reached the level to match the need.
Well, you got 10.27 square miles, you got limited land, you got limited inventory, you got developers that are itching to drive the price point as high as possible. You got the University of Virginia producing intelligent people who are choosing to stay in the market, creating businesses that are high salaries. Your thoughts on this Q2 report, Michael Guthrie?
Well, just staying in Charlottesville for 1 second, one of the things that I think is really exciting, not just in Charlottesville, but in the footprint of Charlottesville, surrounding counties, is because of this market, we're seeing smaller builders getting a chance to be back in the marketplace. And so you look at a village at Moores Creek, I think it's Woodland Builders, out of Waynesboro. They're building in there. You've got Paynes Mill, which is Southern Development. They're a large-sized builder, but it's a small pocket. Going back to what Quinton said, and you said, there's not much land available, but in these small pockets, even Nassau Street, the thing that Keith is doing with the Thomas Jefferson Land Trust, they're little pockets of land that are being able to be bought and developed because the market is active. And I agree with there's no middle, but I also think that, interestingly enough, as you look at the numbers, not just in Charlottesville but in the surrounding areas, the pending numbers are down a little bit. And what that means is that the third quarter, when those things close, we may see that things have stabilized. And before we came on the show, I think one of the things we should be watching is I think we're getting into a more balanced market, which is good for buyers. It's been such a seller's market in the certain price ranges for sure. And then the last thing I would say is, just in starting out, is as you get into a higher price range, you start competing with new construction. And one of the things I noticed in 2018 versus 2019, both in pending and in closings, is new construction. Even though there were less pendings in this quarter than last quarter and less closings this quarter than last year's quarter, both the numbers for new construction were up. And so it means that new construction is playing more of a role in what we look at, and it goes back to what we initially talked about as to why the average sales price in the city of Charlottesville is so diametrically different than the median price, because we had three significant properties that sold that bring the average sales price up, whereas the median is, what was it, Keith, $100 and some $1,000 difference, right?
140,
yeah.
130, yeah. So I'm actually looking at the numbers live, and we have about 10% in the last 90 days that sold over $750,000 out of a total number of, hold on one moment, please.
Greg Slater says the market share of the top 4 builders has dropped to 71%.
Correct.
Michael is right about the smaller builders gaining traction and coming back post-recession. He agrees with that point. Rachel Foster says, Quinton Beckham, great point. You're on point right there. Keith Smith.
Yeah, so you say this all the time in our show. It's kind of for us to get out of the way and let the experts talk a little bit about it. But to stay on the new construction side of things, just from representing a buyer or a seller, when you're in a neighborhood when there's a lot of new construction left over, it's pretty hard to buy a home that's a couple of years old versus a new home. And until that inventory, and Westlake comes to mind, I have a client that we're trying to help sell a house there, we're frankly just not going to be able to get the numbers that they're looking to get because they're competing against new construction. So I would agree with that. But the reason why that skew is there's a substantial number of sales in the last 90 days in Charlottesville that are north of $750,000.
I think that's true, and I'm noticing that land availability in Charlottesville is really down. We had the Junction Homes townhome project that just sold out not too long ago, and that was the last multi-acre lot that I could see being available for development, and that has sold out very, very quickly. So when you're talking about homes, sale prices, and new home builders in the city, I'm curious to see what the next 12 months holds, and if there is enough of a push in the market to develop plots of land that have been seen as non-productive up to this point, because we're running out of that land in the city.
So do you think that is why Greene County is doing so well, say Fluvanna County doing so well, and some of the stuff outside the urban ring of Albemarle County, because that is where as a recovering developer, that's where the product is, that's where the
Low price points.
Well, it's where the dirt is.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right. When you look at the Greene County numbers, Greene County is the one county that is significantly up, and it's because of a couple subdivisions in there that are in the 2s and low 3s, and people are looking for enough space and a yard and being able to qualify. And I also think, and we don't spend a lot of time looking at it, but we will be spending a lot of time looking at it in the next year or two, because the larger builders have finally gone over the mountain. Yeah. I can remember when Ryan Holmes said they wouldn't go into the valley, and they're over there now. Atlantic Builders is in Waynesboro and has just bought some more land over there. Yeah. And if you're willing to drive that far, and in the scheme of things, it's not very far, because you get on 64 and come in, as long as no accidents. It's not that far, but people are willing to drive a little bit to get what they want, and I think it's, again, another example of there's no availability of land for people to get here, so sure. It's kind of like the analogy I use is, why are we seeing more bears? Well, because they're being pushed out of their natural habitat and they're coming in to find something to eat. Well, it's the same thing in this situation, that there's no land, so the developers and the builders are having to go out farther to continue running a profitable business.
I love it.
And I do think you can see some of that if you start comparing the reports. So if you look at median sales price for the city year-to-date versus Albemarle County, those are very, very similar. But in terms of percentages and the amount of sales and days on market, when you spread out to the county, that's just a much better set of numbers.
Correct.
And like you said, a lot of that has to do with where the dirt is. Drive out 20 in what used to be land that nobody was interested in developing on, and you're going to pass a lot of new development as you go out there. We've talked about some that are out sort of 5th Street extended, and in that area, we're seeing places become attractive and no longer being thought of by your Charlottesville long-termers as a drive that in the past would have been thought, that's outside of the city.
So an interesting add-on to that, just from an observational perspective. So Yonna and I live at Lake Monticello, been there since 1987. And I can tell you, and we track Lake Monticello sales pretty closely. We're starting to see a regular influx of what I would call Charlottesville real estate agents that don't typically sell out there. And so we will get phone calls from other agents and other brokerages. So tell me how the POA process, homeowners association process, is very different out there than it is other places. So just from an anecdotal, did I say that word right?
Yep.
Was close anyway. You're starting to see that. It's something Jerry and I talk about on this show quite regularly. And something that I'm directly involved with on the different organizations I sit on is roadblocks to developing, roadblocks to creating the inventory. I think this is more of a rhetorical question. Do you see that getting any better or getting worse? Or because if the process is so long, therefore inventory isn't getting better, right? Dirt inventory. How is that long term, in your opinion, going to impact the market?
Depends on the municipality.
Well, municipality I'm putting out of it. I'm just talking process, right?
In general?
So I think we talked about this last week. In 97, I did 150 lot subdivision, central water and sewer, so forth and so on. VDOT roads took me 6 months to get it approved, put a bulldozer on it. We just helped another client get a project approved out there. Just the rezoning took 4 years. We're not even through site plan process, which is going to take another 2 years. So if that process doesn't get streamlined, regardless of jurisdiction, do you think that's going to have a long-term impact on the market? Does that make any sense, that question?
Yeah, I think two things. One is I have heard from talking to builders and developers that the city and county have gotten better. I mean, we've got a long way to go, but they seem to be trying to figure out how to do it better and that kind of thing. Maybe the new county exec, maybe, I don't know exactly why, but it sounds like there's more of a, hey, we want to help you with this. But the real question, the answer to the question is, it's going to have an impact because, as before we came on the show, are we in a situation where things are getting to a certain price where it's going to stabilize? Well, this is where I give developers just all the credit in the world, because the situation with you with 4 years or even 2 years, you buy land at a certain price, and 2 years later, you hope that you did it on the right side. But if you did it on the wrong side, you're out of business. Or could be out of business because of the fact that you've leveraged and you did all the right things from a business standpoint, but the numbers just don't work anymore. And so I absolutely think you're right. And then at some point, I know we'll talk about this, but we need to have a commitment from both the city and the county in regards to infrastructure, city and counties, as far as infrastructure. Because when you look at what they're talking about, yeah, you talk about what's going to happen on Brook Hill there at Polo Grounds Road, or you look at what they're doing along Meadow Creek Parkway and Ryle Road. I mean,
outside Glenmore.
Outside Glenmore. I mean, all these places that, maybe there are people that can buy these or rent these places, but to put all that traffic on 250 or on Ryle Road and a 2-lane Meadow Creek Parkway, which, I wish they had done 4 lanes when they did the thing, is just going to create major havoc for people that live in those places now, and the people that will live there, they're going to be frustrated too.
What do you think?
I think this is going to be interesting to watch play out. Back in my home state, the governor has gotten the state of California to sue the city of Huntington Beach, and he's suing them over things that we're talking about. How do you get affordable housing into a city into a place where there is room and just nobody wants it there. And I think we're going to see a lot of happening in the future that mimics what we've seen in the past. And moving governments and municipalities usually doesn't happen with the smoke, it waits till the fire. We were talking before the show went on live that the yield curve has inverted. That has been the most accurate predictor of a recession. It's not guaranteed, but it is the thing that makes everybody pause. You had the Feds talk about raising rates, they backed up, that made all the investors nervous. You have the highest percentage of rentals owned by conglomerates and real estate investment trusts that we have ever seen, and that's only about a decade old. And on top of that, you have a poor jobs growth report that just came out, and we're coming up on an election year, which always sort of throws a wild card into the economic stance. So I think what you're going to have is all of this stuff play out in ways that maybe don't affect whether or not somebody living in Charlottesville is going to buy or sell a home next year in the same way that it might in a larger city. But it will affect what happens in the years to come, because it's going to put pressure on those municipalities. It's going to put pressure on governments as a whole to address issues, and hopefully will create a little bit easier environment for developers, for other things to happen on the edges of the city.
So are you saying your forecast sees a hiccup on the horizon?
I think that it is harder to predict.
But it always is. I mean, look, if everybody could predict it, we would all own the island I go to every year.
I think that's true and not true. There's lots of things.
This is what I was looking for.
There's lots of things we see coming.
We're starting to do this.
There's things we see coming, but the political and financial momentum prevents us from changing course.
Sure.
You know, if you want a big example, go back to the market crash. There were lots of smart, intelligent, and wealthy people that saw it 2 years in advance, but the momentum of this beast of the finance market was such that it was impossible to turn it that far.
So I would be one of those, maybe not intelligent or good looking or smart, but Michael knows his story. I've told this story on air before. You know, absolutely, I got caught up in it. We got caught up in it. My family got caught up in it. You know, the length of thing, we did a rather large project, started in 2003. We couldn't put our first bulldozer on the job site until 2008.
Yeah.
Right? And oops, $17 million later, you know, it is what it is. So it's very, you know, it's been we talk about small builders. I think what's going to happen in the development community is you have to have some really deep pockets in order to play in that field. And it used to be smaller guys could do smaller projects, but the approval process on it just takes time. Personally, I'm high on the market. I think the market's going to do great. I think the real estate market is moving on. I think we're on a 12 to 24 month kind of slide on it. You know, interest rates are low. You know, it's the two staples, food and shelter. That's really not going away. Population is growing. I think it really comes down to an inventory struggle.
Yeah.
And then and I keep on using this missing middle. You know, I'm part of a national cohort out of Portland State University that we're looking at this from a national perspective. And I think that's where the market's going to be hiccup at. I think on the upper end, we're all going to do pretty well. And then on the lower end, as long as these governmental programs are still in place, first-time home buyers, so forth and so on, it's this middle, in my opinion, this middle number that's the struggle. And in my opinion, that is even more of a time that you want to have trusted advisors. You want to have professionals working for you, you know, not an app. Does that make any sense?
That makes perfect sense. Let's thank some of the folks that are watching. We have a number of bankers watching. Kelly Dye watching now from First Citizens Bank. Movement Mortgage is watching. Tammy Wilt. She says the information on this show is fantastic. Mike Bittrick's team is watching right now. Bellamy Brown, who's running for Charlottesville City Council, is watching
Simplify
now.
Marine.
Snook is watching right now. Richard Abrusky, is that your friend? This is
That
great
is my
work.
friend.
Yeah, fantastic work right now. If you have a question, comment, concern that you want to relay to the panel, I'm happy to do it. Put it in the chat box. I think you and I are thinking the same with what's on the horizon here, but we have some questions coming in here. This is from Nest Realty. Greg Slater, when appropriate, I would be interested in knowing the panel's thoughts and takes on this. How is the market picking up? At the end of March, closed sales were off 16%. At the end of June, that has dropped to 4%. Year-over-year contracts are up 4%, so the gap will continue to close and most likely end up ahead. June was the third strongest month of the year for new home sales at 77. That is unusual. Market confidence, interest rate, so kind of what we're talking about here. Michael, thoughts on this?
Yeah, Greg, you may not have joined us right away, but we kind of talked about that at the very beginning, about the fact that new construction is definitely playing a major role in this situation. And I think you're right. As we talked about, the pending sales are down in the second quarter, so I think that gap is going to continue to shrink. And I personally think it's that even though things are good, there's still the questions. I mean, we're having the questions right on this panel about what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Economic uncertainty. How many of us would have thought that we'd be talking about, as of this morning, I think, stock market being at 27,277. I mean, over 27,000. That's just, nobody thought about that. However, and something that has been pointed out in a couple different places is the number of cash sales that are happening in our marketplaces has increased. And one, I think that means discretionary income. People have the ability to do cash. But I also think that you've got a situation where in the lower price ranges that is still very active, the first-time buyers still competing, not as much, but still competing with investors. And the investors going in there and buying cash and then fixing them up and flipping them or renting them or whatever the case may be. So I know of a number of occasions where parents, not this one, but parents have paid cash for their kids, and then they've created a loan program to have the kids pay for it until the kids can refinance it. And if you, again, who has the gold makes the rules, if you've got cash, it's unfortunately causes some first-time buyers not to be able to do what they want to do, even though interest rates are great. You can do amazing things with VHDA financing and things like that. And then going back to what Quinton said before we got on the show, they get discouraged, and so they just say, I'm just going to rent. And that means they're out of the game for a year, and they might get comfortable in that situation and not really understand the buying process, not understand that they don't have to have 20% down, that there's USDA Rural, which is 100% financing. There's VHDA, FHA. There are all sorts of different programs. And so I think while we have this uncertainty and we have millennials waiting longer to buy, as Greg asked, that gap is going to continue to shrink. And I think 2019 will finish a little bit ahead of 2018, but I don't think by much.
What do you think, Keith?
Well, I'm hoping my daughters aren't watching because I am not giving you cash to buy a house. So please do not take Michael Guthrie's suggestions. Look,
and she's in Seattle?
She's in Seattle.
Okay.
One's in Seattle, one's in Connecticut.
Okay, so
that'd be a lot of cash.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And you would be sleepless in Lake Monticello versus sleepless
So remember
in Seattle.
this whole story about us losing money? So, but look, the short version of that, we're saying exactly the same thing. I see the market being a little bit on the level side. I don't see it going up too high, going too low. As somebody who dabbles in the stock market, that's what I like to see. I don't like to see huge swings. I like to see things nice and easy and moving along. So, and as Michael was speaking, the thing that keeps on coming to my mind, and we talk about this on the show regularly, and that's the reason why we bring rock stars on, is this is really the time you want to have somebody that really is a trusted advisor and understands this. Yonna and I, my wife and I were talking this morning, and we were just having our conversation, typical morning conversation, and we're just talking about a couple of projects we're closing at the moment. I mean, we have between 20 and 30 individuals, professional individuals involved in every closing. And it's just, I don't know about it from your guys' side of the table, but from my side of the table, it just seems to get getting more complicated. So where you need somebody to come in and help, and we deal with a lot of millennials, and it's always the case. In my opinion, they get to a saturation point, they put their iPhone down, and they say, tell me what I'm supposed to do, right? They're looking for somebody to guide them through this process because it's so overwhelming on it. But at the end of the day, food and shelter rates are low, inventory is not that great,
and I think what's happening in the market is actually going to be good for us as a community.
Agree.
We've lived through a couple years where it was so dramatically a seller's market that it was stupid, and there was competition over houses and people jumping into things that might not have even been the best decision for them. But I think leveling that out a bit is going to be a good thing. I think we got a shot in the arm because there was a lot of new construction that came online, even though those builders and developers I felt like were a little conservative in the number of units they put out. And that's probably why we're going to see pendings come down. We're going to see contracts come down because we've used up that inventory. We've put in the buyers and the rest are sitting to the one side. So I do think in the long term this is going to help. You're talking about that missing middle. And the missing middle can be a function of a couple of things. You know, some of it is financing and income, but some of it is also inventory on the market where sellers are remembering 2 years ago and last year,
Sure.
and they're coming on at $40, $50, $60, $75, $80,000 higher
So-
than what can really happen. And so I'm hoping to see some of those things pushed together. So although I believe there will still be that gap in the middle, I think it's going to be narrower.
That mindset also competing with the new construction is hurting that person that's putting the home on the market, and I'm seeing that firsthand on my street.
Sure.
And you highlighted that very well.
Correct.
Sure.
Um,
So I'm going to throw something out that probably will have 3 or 4 different opinions. So
And just from me.
just from you, that's right. You're not schizophrenic. It's okay. But in any event, so my theory or my opinion is when we're hovering around 90 days, that I consider that a neutral market, which I think is actually a really good place to be. So do you two gentlemen kind of agree with that 90-day, you know?
What 90 day are you talking about?
90-day
DOM.
DOM.
Okay. Yeah, I think. I think
Days
if
on
you
market.
if you get to days on market at 90, you've got a nice balanced market. I think it's up in Charlottesville up to like 54 or something like that. The one thing before I finish that, the other new construction piece that in answer to the question earlier, because there's so much new construction pendings, and because they've done so many, a lot of those aren't going to close till next year, 2020. Some builders are already into 2020 with their closing. So even though that shows activity right now, you're not going to see that in the closed market report until 2020. And so that's another reason why that number will shrink. But in regards to days on market, if you can get anywhere between 60 and 90 days, you've got a nice market where, as I said earlier, somebody can see a house, they can go home and think about it, they can go back and look at it a second time and not feel like they've just got to, make a decision. And so I hope, going back to what you said, Quinton, about it being it's good for the market, you get people who really make the right decision on the house they want to buy, and they don't then wake up 2 days later, which we all do anyway, with cold sweat and our pillows wet because we go, oh, what have we done? But when people make a knee-jerk reaction, we have a lot more people changing their mind, and so getting out on the home inspection or the condo docs or whatever the case may be. I'm not seeing as much of that right now because I think we're getting into more of a stabilized market, which ultimately is a good thing for everybody.
So the greater Charlottesville area, days on market is 54.
Yeah.
Not bad. A lot of comments coming in here. First, Michael, throw this to you here. You're getting some props and some love from Richard Austin. He says, Michael, good to see you doing well, brother. I'm getting a DM here from one of my buddies I have beers with. He's a planning commissioner in Greene County. He says, Jerry, Albemarle County and Charlottesville making it difficult for developers is our gain in Greene County.
Oh, yeah.
Another
They
guy.
scored a huge project, huge townhome project.
That's what he
Well
says.
done.
That's
Well
what he
done.
says. A gentleman I play racquetball with, I mentioned that you guys were going to be on the show. His name is Dean Wenger. He's the CEO, the president of the Catton Companies. He asked you guys to hit this topic here. President Ryan at the University of Virginia has put out a plan that within the next 5 years, second years will be housed by university housing. Some trepidation with how that will impact rentals. He, of course, is in charge of MSC, which I believe is in charge of the most rentals around grounds in the city of Charlottesville in the market here. That's an interesting topic that I would like to throw to you guys.
So I'm going to jump in on that.
Okay.
So who's the gentleman's name? What's his
Dean Wenger, CPA, president of the Catton Companies.
So, Dean, I need you to please continue to watch the show. I just was asked by President Ryan's team to put together a working group on that. We're actually meeting on the 29th. So, the good thing about President Ryan, is he's bringing in local folks to talk about this. So, we're going to have about a 15-person local nonprofits, developers, builders. His office reached out to me to put a team together, and we've done that. So I guess the comment on that is this isn't something they're just going to go out and do. They're really seeking local input on it.
His organization writing a letter as we speak. In fact, has written a letter to the university wondering about that question. Pam Allen says hello.
Can I jump in
Sure,
on that?
yeah, of course.
So offline, can we connect each other and I'll buy him a cup of coffee and see what I can do to help?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Pam Allen says, great info. I'm watching right now.
Let me just speak to the exact thing that we're talking about here. One, this is coming out of President Ryan making the university more approachable,
Yeah.
and wanting to engage in the community. I was involved in an effort to bring a bunch of nonprofits together and just talk about the question, what if? What if everybody came together, got out of their silos, bridged from one thing to the next? And unbeknownst to me, the university was putting together a group of people to do that same thing. And so now all these folks are kind of working together, which is great. But what I see in this situation is hopefully it brings 14th Street, Grady, Gordon back to family neighborhoods. Because the tradition at UVA has always been you get out of first year and you live in...
You hold a house forever and you pass it down.
That's right. You pass it down and whatever. And so if, in fact, they do that and the second years now have a place to live and it makes sense to live wherever they're going to build these things, that begins to stop that. And the people who've owned those things and not fixed them up, and 12 guys living in a house with 1.5 bathrooms and that kind of thing, we've talked about that before, Jerry. You've got a situation where they then decide, this has been fun, but now that I'm not getting what I want, and so then they put it on the market and sell, and a family buys it, and it changes that whole neighborhood. I think that's a very positive impact if that happens.
So we shared this. Do you mind if I jump in?
Sure, yeah.
So we shared this when Michael Payne was on again, part of this national cohort I'm a part of. We're working on increasing density in the single-family detached residence. So Portland is doing it. Minneapolis just did it, where you can get up to 4 units into a single-family detached lot. So this is information that I'm going to share with President Ryan's team, because they just don't know it, right? And Michael started this process off, frankly, some time ago. But one of the struggles is, and one of the things that I excited about and helping, is bringing different folks together to talk about it. So the UVA folks, I've been on the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission for 10 years, and we finally have UVA at the table. It took me 10 years to get that to happen. So they get it. Everybody's kind of freaking out about it. Don't freak out too much about it. They're getting some good information, and I think some good decisions will come out of the group.
I think to add to yours, when you look down West Main with the Uncommon and some of those towers, those are coming in at such a high price point. It's creating this ecosystem almost of the elite student that can afford the $1,400 a month studio. And then it's creating pockets of students that don't have parents with such deep pockets that are then, it's basically the cafeteria where you have folks here sitting here of a certain demographic, folks here of a certain demographic, folks over there of a certain demographic, and he's concerned that that shouldn't be what Charlottesville and UVA is about. So I think that's why perhaps the University of Virginia is looking to try to make it a little bit more, diverse with its housing?
So Greg Slater, who's watching, is going to be part of this team that's going to be a part of it because of our work that we do on the land trust to bring diversity to it. I know we're getting a little bit off of the report stuff, but Quinton's been staring at me, so I was just hopefully if you had some 2 cents to add.
I just think folks that are owning rentals and worried about where they're coming, I don't think you have anything to worry about in the foreseeable future. No matter how many more homes have come on the market, our months of inventory continue to go down, and the additional building you see says that most developers agree with me. There's 1,500 units of rentals going on. Where was it we were just talking about, Michael? Mm-hmm. That are coming online. They're continuing to build these. The need is going to continue to exist. I am hopeful.
Do you think they're overbuilding?
Do I think they're overbuilding? Not yet.
Good.
Not yet. And I think some of that is also just because we have consumers that aren't terribly well informed. We talk about this all the time. They feel like they need huge amounts of money, or that their income is too low, or they feel like they need to make a killing on the house for it to be financially feasible. And they forget that a lot of what generates family wealth generation to generation with home ownership is that you're fixing your housing cost today for the next 30 years.
Right.
That's exactly
And
right.
if you don't know how much that's worth,
It's freaking huge.
look 30 years ago at what rent was.
Right.
And this is why getting people into homes, whether the house is worth 400 grand extra at the end of their ownership or not, it's not terribly relevant to the conversation of how home ownership creates wealth.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit. So
that.
this has been an exciting conversation. So next Friday, I'm going to have millennial agents sitting in those seats and ask them the same question. Tell us about the market. Tell me what you see. You know, maybe folks that have a little less gray hair than, well, forget about him.
Who you got coming on the show?
Well, I haven't quite set it up yet,
Okay.
but we've got three
That's a good idea.
rock stars. They're part of what the CAR calls the YPN, Young Professionals Network. So we're going to have at least three, maybe. If you let me bring another one, always looking.
No, you can. Hey, well, you can do what you want. This is a good number right here, and it's
Okay.
going really well here. We have some questions coming in to add to what you're saying. We have positions at the villas at Southern Ridge with a fixed 30 at $1,004 a month. Those rentals price points have now climbed over $1,400 with a 4.75% escalator each year. Questions coming in about Nelson County. Throw it to you. Nelson County, and I'm going to cue up the numbers here. 14.5% increase.
Yeah, again, when you look at Nelson County, you've got a small, I don't know exactly the numbers, you get a small sampling. So Nelson County can go up and down. You know, if you have 3 or 4 extra sales or not 3 or 4 less sales, that 14.5% can happen because of the small numbers. However, I think Nelson County, again, similar to the south down 29, Albemarle County toward Lynchburg, both are, you know, sort of just waiting to happen because all the fun, as I call 150 fun, all those fun things are happening out there. Blue Mountain Brewery, Veritas, you know, Wintergreen, Nellisford, Bold Rock. All those places are out there, and because of that, people similar that want to live rural, unlike the people who want to live downtown and enjoy walkability, all the places, there are a lot of people that want to live rural, have the mountain views, but have places to go. And now, holy moly, you've got all sorts of places to go within 10 or 15 minutes in Nelson County, including wherever you buy in Nelson County. You could be over in the Waynesboro area and not that far from Stanton, which has become really a cool place to go on the weekends. So the point being is, I think more people are paying attention to Nelson. The prices are less. And so if somebody's willing to drive out and want that sort of bucolic, rural sort of scenario, it's not like you're out in the middle of nowhere anymore. Still, it'd be nice to, you know, and I don't think this will happen anytime soon. It'd be nice to have grocery stores and stuff.
Like a Fifth Street Station.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
I mean, you've got to go into Crozet to Harris Teeter or across the mountain to Martin's or whatever to get your main, you know, food stuff. But there are all sorts of things that you can do there now that weren't there 5 years ago.
But if you dig into the numbers, most of those 50 sales in the last quarter was in 1 or 2 zip codes, a pretty small footprint in the county.
So you're saying that increase is not a true reflection of what's actually happening in Nelson County?
In my opinion, it's hard to, and I think this is what Michael's trying to say, is to paint that as a broad brush for the whole county. It's a little laser focused around, what is it, 151 fun?
150 fun.
150
Yeah.
fun. Look at that, huh? So that's a little difficult, and it's the same thing if you look at Fulvana County's numbers, right? It's mostly Lake Monticello. You know, they're a little bit more eccentric in the location.
What do you think, Quinton? $277,000 median sales price in Nelson.
You know, I think if you look at Nelson and you really sort of drill down, it's stayed really consistent year to
Sure.
year. The only big difference is you put 13 more homes on the market than you did last year, and you sold 14 more homes than you did last year. Everything else is so flat as to be unmentionable. And much as he said, if you want to look up those 14 extra homes, they are all within 5 miles of one another.
exactly right.
Because it's just an area that's been discovered where people are like, hey, I can live here because it's staggering distance from the latest brewery. So I think it's being discovered, but I don't know that there's really been much change there.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Nellisford, which is Nelson County. It's a great little community, part of Wintergreen, down with Stony Creek, the golf course and stuff. And those prices have stayed really flat for a good long period of time, and you go up the mountain, and then you have either Nelson or Augusta, which is kind of interesting thing about the resort is that you depending on where it is, some's in Augusta, some's in Nelson. Boy, right now there are some incredible buys up there. I mean, you can get a condo up there for very
affordable,
very reasonable, and have a little getaway place. And over these last few days, you watch the news and you see what our number is, and then you see Wintergreen at 73 or whatever. Boy, it makes you think about maybe I should have just a little cooling house up on the mountain.
So it might not be for skiing anymore.
I think you're right, dude.
They got a little bit of snow last year, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well, did they make it, or was
Are you
it
talking about the
natural?
drinks that
They
got
actually
spilled
had
off
pretty
the
good-
balcony, or are you talking about actual snow?
They actually had pretty good winter last year with natural snow, but they have some of the best snowmaking equipment on the East Coast.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Keith, your thoughts?
Yeah, so we're kind of rallying back to how we started the conversation, right? Charlottesville has this huge gap between median and average, right? But if you take a look at the rest of the jurisdictions or the rest of the county, it's been more of a consistent, even flow. So, which is kind of telling me that, that missing middle, that dollar amount in the middle is just, they can't find what they're looking for at the price point in Charlottesville as much as they want to. And they're going out. I mean, Keith and Yonna Smith are the prime example, right? I want to have a 2-bedroom condo within stumbling distance of a couple of breweries. But darn, I'm not so sure I can afford it.
Well, you have all those grandkids coming.
You got
Really?
a 1.4 row house on Water Street, C&L.
Yeah. I got grandkids apparently.
Okay, yeah, great.
And I got a wedding to pay for. So,
But I'll give you a really personal example. I live in Still Meadow over off Carrsburg, which is a great little neighborhood. And we bought our house, not just being straightforward, we bought our house in 2005 for $525,000. It's a great neighborhood. It's a half-acre lot. House is in good shape. We might be able to get $20,000, $30,000 more for that house now than then. That's 14 years. And the reason being, going back to what Keith's talking about, is we're in a part of the marketplace that is very much affected by new construction.
Sure.
And so even though, community pool, walk to Ravenna River, those kinds of things, the market there has stayed fairly flat. Now, we've had some decent sales in the last couple months, but the point being is that you think, you look at, and this is why I think it's really important, when you're looking at these reports or reading something in the newspaper and it says 3 or 4% appreciation rate, that's overall. So if mine had been 3 or 4% since 2005, my number would be much higher than 550 or 555 or whatever it is I could get for it. In pockets, that isn't the case.
You're saying it's the life cycle of the 30-year mortgage.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying where you live will be dependent on whether you've seen appreciation or not because of other outlying factors that are keeping the price down or pushing the price up.
So we in this show try to demystify, keep things simple. The real estate market, and I think everybody will agree, is 4 things: locations, price, features, and conditions. You hit all 4, it sells. Mm-hmm. As the market is getting a little bit neutral, as one of them changes a little bit. But to Michael's point, the location is key, right? I mean, that's where you're going to start off first, and where's your where, right? And then everything else kind of stacks up behind it. I do want to go backwards a little bit about the general market. Yonna and I's business in the second quarter was probably the best second quarter we've ever had in terms of sales, pendings, and closings. So I don't know if that's means anything other than maybe we.
Means you're good at your job.
Now, maybe it might be the I Love Charlottesville Network.
It's good. You're good at your job, Keith.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree that you're good at your job because we've done deals together. But
Yeah.
setting that aside,
Great.
do you feel like any of that business was first quarter business that got pushed?
Good question.
No. I have new construction. To Michael's point, we have new construction sales that were supposed to be 19 closes that are now pushing to 20 closes. Mm-hmm. But that's not reflecting the sentiment that we're looking at the moment. But we kind of keep we track our numbers separately, right? I have existing is tracked one way, and new construction, because new construction, as we just noted, bad weather or something that's supposed to close in December may not close until January, that kind of thing. Yeah, my wife let me know what the numbers were this morning, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Nice. Justine Montgomery says, great show. I'm learning a lot while driving up 95. How about this question for you, Quinton? When does the impact of new construction disappear and someone that's got a home, say in Glenmore where the DOM is somewhat high, or someone's got a home, say in Redfield's Phase 1 where it's a late 90s, or someone has a home like Michael described, can come back to market and not have this white kitchen, modern gray, stainless steel appliance competition?
That new construction stops having an impact when there's no more new construction. And we have gone through a lot of that inventory very quickly. Developers have seen that and they're looking to make more inventory. We've seen that happen. And there is a need if you look at our months of inventory available. So that's there. But I think it's inappropriate and not helpful for sellers to think too hard about the numbers we're talking about today in light of their own house. That is a very granular, individual thing, and you have to step into the house, know what that seller's priority again is. Is it fast? Is it easy? Is this a house that has been vacant for a while and they're out of state and they don't want to repair it? Money is always an issue. So recognizing that money is always an issue, what's the next thing that owner needs? And then let us work with you to get that. There's 1,000 ways to make a house sell better, and some of them are not worth it. And there's a lot of things that can make a house not sell.
Love that.
So Jerry, I'm going to say this for you.
Yeah, please.
Make that a sizzle reel, Harris.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love that. That was on point. Yeah.
Oh, so
that's a highlight clip from the show that we cut, a shorter clip.
That's what a sizzle reel is.
So if this is a game, that's a touchdown right there. You just threw a 50-yard touchdown. Yeah.
And I plan to steal that, by the way.
Yeah, have that.
J.M. Guthrie, your son, Dad, you're looking good up there. I'm happy to see you back on the show with Jerry. Fantastic information. How about that? Throw that to you. Feeling good? You're looking good.
I am.
Saw you running on the treadmill.
Yeah, I look better than I am. I think I'm about 45, 50% recovered from the Guillain-Barré, which is much better than 0%. And I ran without falling down yesterday on the treadmill, and she's got me on a walk-to-run program now, so that hopefully within a month I'll be running a mile in 10 minutes. And the other goal, Keith, you'll be happy to hear about this, is the men's 4-miler in December.
Cool, I'm with you, brother.
Yeah.
So that's
we're all in, right, gentlemen? Yeah. We're all going to run with Michael?
I could totally do that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
No.
Yeah.
You will ride your bicycle.
I will ride a bike
for 4 miles
and hand you cold water.
Cold water? How about a cold beer?
I think that violates an ordinance.
I have to pivot a little bit. You've been doing a little bit of this. Do you have a little Marine in you? That's some kind of knife hand Sergeant United States Marine Corps stuff there.
Well, it's rude to point. And so you always need more than one finger out there.
Stephen Allen says you're doing a hell of a job, Quinton. What are your thoughts on what we were just talking about here? And you've touched on this a little bit as far as that new construction. Is it going to go away? I mean, how much inventory is left?
Well, again, it's going to go away in places where somebody wants it. If you want new construction, you're going to have to go out farther to get it. But an example we talked about as far as your neighborhood concerned, Redfields, Oak Hill is if not sold out, it's pretty close to sold out. So that's been competing with your marketplace for at least a couple of years now. When that gets done, what ends up happening is that Redfields will feel the benefit of that, because Oak Hill will be done, those price ranges will be established, and when people go to look into the comparables, they'll see those things. And but until it's done, it competes. The little place that we have in Naples, Florida, same thing. We bought it in 2005. We bought way out. Well, now way out is where all the new construction's happening. So we love the little place, but it's going to be forever until we see any sort of appreciation on it.
So the short answer is new construction is always going to be there, right? There are projects in the pipelines that either we don't know about or some of us do know about. But, as an example, when Yonna and I moved to Lake Monticello in '87, out of 4,500 lots, there was only 600 houses, right? So there's always going to be some new construction impact on it in the pipeline or getting ready to come out of the ground. So again, I'm going to keep on repeating this on our show. This is when you want to get a trusted advisor,
Absolutely.
somebody who knows the market, that works for one of the many firms. Love to see Yonna and I be it, but if not, there's some great folks across the table here. You like that, huh?
I do. You got to do that.
Yeah.
You got to go for the close, baby.
I was getting texts from Yonna, so I'm just saying.
Yonna says, you all running the men's 4-miler, great news. I'll bring the beer. Your son says, I'm there, Dad.
Awesome.
I will run it with you.
Yeah,
Ray,
tell her that my daughter's ready to go too, Becca.
Yeah?
And we'll get Katie down.
Should I let Becca know that she can't? It's a men's 4-miler.
Oh, that's true. Well, she'll be there to cheer me on.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's good. That's good. Ray Cadell, welcome to the show. Lee Hughes, welcome to the show, the commercial real estate agent.
Hey, Ray.
Keith Smith, what's on your brain over there? I definitely want to give everybody a final word. We filled an hour and change. This has been easy.
So, as this show goes on, this is really like falling off a log for us. I think the hardest part from my job on this show is getting great folks in on the other side of the table. And once I get that done, I just try to stay out of the way and let these folks do what they're doing. They do best. So I'm excited about next week because I really want to get that millennial feed.
Great idea.
Feed on that, and the folks that I have in mind are actually, you and I will be the only 2 males on set, so it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. Laura Shannon from Remax watching right now. GR's watching right now. Your thoughts on a final word here?
I just think things in the market are always in flux, and if you're selling your home that you've lived in for 20 years to make money, you're selling it for the wrong reason. So just let us help you with that. Keep moving forward, and we'll all keep an eye. There's always going to be new stuff.
I love it. Lori Shannon says Crozet is the perfect example of what you are talking about. Existing home sales are not just flat, but decreasing slightly. Master plan is for an additional 8,000 to 10,000 people. Constant new home competition will be for a decade.
Yeah, she's
point.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. And the one last point I would make is, now is the time to buy, and I would say that any time, because once you're in the market, you're in the market. And we talk about low interest rates, we can talk about different types of mortgage financing, we can talk about days on market going up, so maybe it's turning from a seller's to buyer's market. But the real point is you want to get in the game where you're not beholden to a landlord, that you've got a fixed rate payment, that every month some part of that is paying down your equity, so your loan, so you're going to build equity. And the only piece of advice I give all the time, if you're buying a house for the first time, make sure you understand what it can rent for, so that when you buy it and you go ready to do something else, maybe you can hang on to it and let somebody else pay that mortgage down, and it becomes a college education fund or whatever the case may be. You don't want to be in a situation where 2 years later you have to sell and the market, as we've been talking about, is flat, so you haven't got the appreciation. You want to be in a situation to have that opportunity to say, well, we'll just rent it for a couple of years until things change. So that's, if it's $1,200, you can afford a $1,200 mortgage payment, go find a house where you can have that you could get $1,200 for rent if you needed to.
Can I jump in on that real
Sure.
quick? So was with a first-time home buyer yesterday. Got super excited about a piece of property very close to UVA. They were super excited about it. Was at a super price point, but putting on my developer builder hat, it needed about $400,000 worth of work. And they were just excited. I want to do this. I want to buy this. I want to do this. And I literally talked them out of the sale. I said, this is not the right time for you. This is not the right buy. You're trying to get into law school, trying to get into medical school, as exciting as it's going to be. And the reason I kind of go back to that story, and I'll keep on saying it's bringing somebody like Quinton or any one of Michael's team members in to help them make their decision. If they would have made that decision, I think they would have regretted it down the road. So I outlined what the positives and the negatives were on it. So again, you really want to bring trusted advisors. That's what the show's about, bringing trusted advisors into the public. So I just want to say thank you, gentlemen. This has been awesome.
Fun.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And looking forward to next week.
Me too. Fridays, 10:15, guys. Real Talk, Central Virginia's guide to real estate. Keith, you had something to say?
I just want to see, did Rachel Forster chime in on any?
I think she's saying great show. She
Okay,
hasn't
cool.
put any other commentary on there.
Cool.
We look forward to having you on set, Rachel. Fridays at 10:15, guys. Put it in your phone. We will archive the show in totality on ilovecville.com. We will cut a number of highlight clips from this program. Quinton, I enjoyed meeting you.
It's nice meeting you as well.
Michael Guthrie, you crush it per usual.
Thank
Keith Smith set this all up.
Thank you.
And the whole concept of this program is to make real estate more approachable and put a level of education out there so you are better equipped for buying and selling your home. We will see you in a week on Real Talk, Central Virginia's Guide to Real Estate. Thank you, Harris Tolbert, for directing this program for us. Take care, guys.
Thank you, man.
Great work. Appreciate it. Yeah, you crushed it.
Thank you.
Good work. Good work.
You gonna do a picture?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. J-Dubs is going to get that photo.